What's up? Welcome back to House Parties. We're finishing our series of February here called Do It Different, where we're talking about how we can look at relationships, friendships, and dating a little bit differently and hopefully do it different from the world. And this week we brought back the amazing Ashley and Hayden. I'm hearing all the clapping in the houses for cheering for them. That's so great. And we brought them back because we love them and we love their story and we want to hear their story. So we would define, if you're part of Chaos at all, we talk about this all the time. What your story is who were you before? When did you meet Jesus? What was that moment like, or those moments? And then who are you now and how's it different? So that's what we want to talk to you guys about. So, hey, go ahead. You guys can introduce yourself here and then we'll dive in.
I'm Hayden Crow.
And I'm Ashley Crow.
So we're going to talk about their story because it's such a cool story of just growth and change and how they began to approach things different and how it changed everything. So we're going to talk about that. All right. So first question I would say is, hey, how did your relationship start? What was your mindset maybe in the very beginning of when you started dating?
Well, we said it on the stage before, but for people that weren't there, we started dating on Tinder. That's how we met. And I had the mindset that I was going to marry Hayden. And his mindset was very different. But I think it's because of our past experiences of he was engaged before. Boo. So I do think that affected a lot of our marriage or our beginning of our relationship. So
Yeah, I think I was just kind of, I was dating just to date that with no specific goal in mind, and probably about as far away from marriage as I possibly could because I was engaged before, and so it kind of put a bad taste in my mouth, and I was just kind of wandering aimlessly. So.
Okay, so what are some ways maybe that you guys approach dating or like the way that you were dating that you would say in the beginning was more of we would say like the worldly view of it, like how the rest of the world would have dated?
Okay. I think that we approached it different when it came to the physical side. I also feel like too, we weren't even focusing on like our foundation with God. I think it was just more, like I said, physical, but also like we weren't even trying to like know each other on a friend basis. And like, I mean, yeah, like I knew what his favorite color was or his favorite food or whatever. But I think when it came to like morals, I didn't even think to ask that. And I think then when we got more serious, those things came to light and it became a struggle for us.
Yeah, I would say we kind of wanted to play like husband and wife for like Ken and Barbie before we put in the work to like get
I'm
to
just Ken.
yeah to get to Ken and Barbie status kind of thing. So yeah, we just kind of wanted to get to the end part, not do all the hard work in the beginning.
So talking about your story, who you were before, now we talk about the moment that things began to change. So what led you to maybe decide to either whether it was follow Jesus for the first time or just change the way you approached your relationship because of Jesus?
Well, Hayden, he was underway. And then he said like, hey, we should go to this church that's like across the street from Walmart. And so we went and we both fell in love. The problem is that we were still living the worldly way and going to church. So a lot of that was conflicting for us, like feeling, I guess, convicted. Is that right? And then, so I think that's when we started to realize that we needed to change because it wasn't working our way.
It was one of those things where as we both started at a similar spot in our faith and were able to grow and to learn together, and then kind of as we started getting deeper into the word and getting closer and growing in our faith, it was like we were uncovering new things, and it was kind of like it was like once you know, you can't go back, right? And so that was hard because it is convicting, right? But you want to do the right thing, and that's something that you get to do and grow in together. So
Okay, so you've started going to church, you've understand, hey, we want to follow Jesus. So then how did your faith then impact your relationship, like your physical boundaries, your communication, maybe your future plans?
yeah, so kind of like what we talked about earlier, we wanted to play Ken and Barbie and do the married couple thing, but we wanted to do it in like in a safe way, right? And so we moved in together as boyfriend and girlfriend, which is
Actually made things worse for us.
it made things significantly worse for us because you put yourself in a position to where your fate is kind of already sealed in a way because you move in together, all of your stuff's there, and it's like you're playing marriage, and it kind of takes away the opportunity to maybe if things weren't going in the right direction in your relationship, that to break up or whatever it might be, it kind of takes that away from you. And so you kind of get stuck in a position. In our case, it worked out well for us. But it gave us a lot of speed bumps along the way, right? It made things,
Some potholes too.
yeah, significantly harder. So yeah.
We didn't get to decide a lot of things. A lot of it was sliding, not deciding, and so that's where we struggled a lot. And I think it created like distrust in our relationship too by living together but not being married. It was almost like you said, like playing house. So it kind of, for me, it like made me feel like uncomfortable and at ease because my name wasn't on the lease. So if like something were to happen or something like that.
Yeah, and that was a thing for me too, was that we had to sit down with John and Chris, and we had kind of talked about trust issues, and I was curious why Ashley like couldn't trust me, and I mean they basically said like, why would she trust you? She's got no security living with you, right? Like, so I mean that was a speed bump in itself, but pothole.
You talked about sliding, not deciding. So instead of sliding, what were some things that you made decisions about? Like when you realized that you had conversation with John and Chris or whoever else, and you kind of decided, okay, we want to follow Jesus, we want to do things different. So instead of sliding into things, we're now going to make decisions about them. Were there any things that you can think of that like these are decisions we made?
So we ended up talking to John and Chris, shout out, and we actually realized we needed to set some boundaries. Most of it was because of the physical parts, and then sorry, we can keep that part. And then we realized though that boundaries are also biblical, and that is not something that we were taught when we were growing up. Is that like God isn't trying to be this like, you can't do this or that. It's more of like, I'm just trying to protect you. Just kind of like your parents. Like, they're not telling you these things because they just don't want you to have fun. They just want to make sure that you're safe.
No, that's so good. There's a pastor I love who talks about this. He says, every do or do not in the Bible is not God trying to keep something from us, but about him trying to give something to us, right? He's trying to give us the way of life that's going to lead us to what he calls a full life, the way we were made, what we were made for. And when we deviate because we think we know better, we end up robbing ourselves and falling into a lot of hurt and difficulty. That's good stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of like when we were dating, it was like I could only see 10 yards in front of me, and so I wanted that short-term gratification. But God can obviously see a lot farther than I can, and so every boundary or rule that is set for us, it's for a reason. It's just because, and it's not that they're bad, it's just that we might not understand them at that time.
Yeah.
So
okay, so now that you're making these decisions and you're deciding and you're not sliding and you're talking to people for godly counsel and you're trying to take steps to follow Jesus, how do you think your relationship with each other improved making those decisions?
I think for us, it actually it helped us to actually go backwards, which doesn't make sense, but to learn how to be each other's friends and to like love each other on like a deeper level. I feel like we were just doing surface level, like what's the word? Well, I guess that's intimacy. Yeah, I think we struggled a lot with intimacy in the beginning of our relationship because it was just based off of like how the world wanted us to be and not how God wanted us to be. And so as we started to like unlayer the things of the world, we started to become, I think, more in love with each other. That's really corny.
Yeah,
But really good.
but good. Yeah, I think we just built kind of a hollow foundation. We both wanted to get more invested in the Word and our faith, but our relationship was just kind of a little wobbly, and so, like Ashley said, we had to go back and kind of do the relationship thing in reverse order. So my recommendation is if you can do it in the right way, in the right order,
Different.
you have to you have to go through the problems regardless at some point. And so it's kind of like, do you want to do that on the front end and get it out of the way and then spend the rest of the years, focusing on loving each other, or love each other and then it starts falling apart and you have to figure out what's going on and kind of, reverse course.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that was my next question. What advice would you give students who are currently dating or thinking about dating? They're all thinking about dating. Let's be real.
I think I wish, and it goes back to what Michelle said when we were at Rush, was like getting to know yourself more. I think when you get to know yourself more, then you know what you want in a relationship. And then you're not basing it off of what some other guy or girl wants for you. It's what you want and what God wants. And getting to know yourself, but with God, I wish that was something that someone told me when I was in like 6th or 8th grade. I've never had any of that. one told me anything. I was just going with it. I'm the oldest child too. What about you?
Yeah, I would say for guys, because I never did this when I was younger, is to focus on connection and personality match and someone that gets your humor.
He's
It's
very funny though.
yeah. So it's still a work in progress, but it's a lot easier and way more fun to love somebody that you can just joke around with and have fun with, and someone that gets you.
But like
So
on a deeper level,
yeah.
yeah.
That's good stuff. And then I have one more. What would you say to someone who's maybe afraid that following Jesus in dating might mean they miss out on something, like they miss out on the fun or they miss out on the happiness that the world's telling us they can find?
I think all my life I was told by the world that if I took the path least traveled, right, following the word and guarding my heart and listening to what God has to say, that it would ultimately not be as fun, or that it would be less fulfilling. And I've found that the opposite is true. And I think that holds some weight because I've lived both sides, right? And so I saw what the world has to offer, and I saw what God has to offer, and I know what my choice is, right? And I would pick that choice a million times over, because ultimately what the world has to offer is very it's like empty calories, right? Like it might be fulfilling in the moment, but long term it's only going to be cause more self-harm. So the only thing that I gained from living the way that the world told me to is just more knowledge on things that I wish I hadn't done, right? And like that's really about it. So.
I always have this like funny little quote where I'll say like, you know, we don't have enough time to learn all the mistakes from ourselves, so why don't we learn them from other people around us? So learn from us. Don't do what we did.
That's why I love your story. Your story is the classic, like, we just started making decisions to take one step at a time. And are you perfect? No, neither am I. But like, it's cool how your relationship has grown.
Aw.
So
I think what's cool is that we got to decide when it came to God, at least. We slid in our relationship, but then at one point we stopped, and then we got to decide with God.
Being able, like, finding someone that you can look up to or talk to is a huge thing. Finding someone that can pour into you, because there's a lot of guys and girls out there that want to do that in a mentorship role. So don't be afraid to try to find somebody out there that wants to pour into you. So.
hey, we're going to wrap this up. Give it up. You're going to clap in your house party. Give it up for Hayden and Ashley, because they're awesome. We're so glad that they are here. You can find them on Sundays. There's no podcast for them to subscribe to yet. Maybe they'll make one. But you can find them on Sundays and tell them how awesome they are. But for tonight, we're going to wrap up and talk a little bit more about Do It Differently, and about how we can talk about, man, what can we learn from their story? How does it apply to our story? And what is God working in our lives, that how we can approach relationships a little bit differently, so that we can walk with Jesus and see how his way is going to ultimately be better.